Hello everyone, my name is Thomas White and this is Thomas Writes. Welcome to my end of the year book haul. This has been a long time coming as I have only ever done one other book haul on this channel. I want to do them more regularly in the future. The big problem is that, one, I don't want to spend a ton of money on books so I can do a book haul every month. But at the same time, I do want to be able to do them every now and then so that I can show you all what I will be reading in the future. It's also just taken me a while to accumulate these books that I have enough that I feel like I can do a book haul rather than just showing off 2 or 3 and it being a 1-minute long video. So I apologize that this second book haul has been a long time coming, but I hope it gets you excited about what kind of books I will be looking at in the future. So the first book I picked up was Blade Runner, or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. This is a book that I've wanted to read for a while, as I have seen both of the Blade Runner movies and really enjoy both of them. I also just really love cyberpunk as a subgenre of sci-fi. I think it is very underutilized in fiction and would love to see more of it. I've also just been really wanting to get into Philip K. Dick as he is super influential on the science fiction genre in general. And with this book, I have a close friend who is really wanting to read it as well, as he is also a big cyberpunk fan. And we are hoping to do a collaboration in the future in which we talk about this book after we have both read it. So stay tuned for that. More details will come in the future. Next up, I picked up The Dragon Reborn, which is The Wheel of Time Book 3 by Robert Jordan. As you can see from the book altar, I already finished books 1 and 2 of The Wheel of Time and have just started getting into book 3. I've already read the first few chapters of this book, and I'm very curious to see where the story goes from here, because the inciting incident to this book puts Rand in a very interesting place, and I really love kind of the reluctant hero arc that he is going through, and there's all of these interesting world-building elements that I'm sure are going to get expanded upon in this book, so I'm curious to see what comes next. Next up on the books that I got is the entire Codex Alera series by Jim Butcher. These books were very graciously given to me by my good friend Chris. Thank you, Chris, for these books. This is a series that I've been wanting to get into as it has been recommended to me by a couple of different friends now. The funny story behind this book series, if I remember correctly, is that it was actually made on a bet between Jim Butcher and another guy, and that person told Jim Butcher, I bet you couldn't write a story about 2 ideas that are so stupid that they wouldn't work together. So I give you the Roman legions with Pokemon. And Jim Butcher said, alright, bet, I'll write that series that combines those 2 ideas. And he ended up writing a 6-book young adult fantasy series that has been well received from what I've heard. I haven't gotten into this series yet, and I don't know when exactly I plan on getting into it. I'm still trying to figure out how to read so many different books at once, especially with Wheel of Time being such a time sink to complete. So I'm not sure when I'll get to Codex Alera, but rest assured this will be coming in the future as well. Next up is a book that I have started reading recently that I'm enjoying so far, and that is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. This one is a kind of a light fantasy in the sense that it's not super heavy on the world building, and it's a pretty easy read. And it's meant to just be kind of a fun, goofy time with some lighthearted stuff thrown in there. Kind of the hook of this book is that it is a getting the band back together story, but with a bunch of barbarians, basically, of an old D&D party that back in the day was the talk of the town, but now they're all old and schlubby and have settled down and gotten married. But when one of their daughters is stuck in a besieged city, they have to get their old crew back together to go rescue her. So already from that premise, I'm on board, and the humor so far is pretty good in this book. This one is a little vulgar, keep in mind. It is a little bit crude, but I am enjoying it so far. It's just such a fun, lighthearted romp. I also just really love the artwork on this book. It's just such a cool cover, and I wish more books would go for this kind of design. It very much stands out on the shelf. And this book is also the first in a trilogy of books. The third book has yet to come out, but I do plan on reading that whole trilogy as well, so keep that in mind for a future review. Next up is another biggin. I have the entire Chronicles of Amber series in this massive omnibus. This one was also given to me by my friend Chris, so thank you very much again for this book. And I know next to nothing about the Chronicles of Amber series. All I know is that there are apparently 10 books in it, all of these contained in this giant volume, and that it's kind of a high fantasy with maybe some sci-fi thrown in there as well, and I believe that these were written back in the 70s or 80s. Again, I know next to nothing about this book. I will say I am a big sucker for classic fantasy covers, especially from the 70s and 80s time period. It's just such a cool looking style that I wish more books would adopt. So again, I know next to nothing about Chronicles of Amber, and so I'd be curious to hear y'all's thoughts. For those of you who have read Chronicles of Amber before, did you enjoy it? Do you recommend the series? This is one that I plan to get to at some point. Again, I don't know when I'm going to be able to get to all of these books, but I imagine since this one is 10 books in one, and most of the books seem to be pretty short, I'll just kind of take this one book at a time and review each one individually. So stay tuned for me reading Chronicles of Amber whenever I'm able to get to that. And then for my last book of this end of the year book haul is the last book that Chris gave me, which is the V for Vendetta original graphic novel. This is one that I'm really looking forward to reading. Honestly, I haven't seen the movie. I know I probably should have at this point since it's kind of a classic now. But V for Vendetta is one of the most famous graphic novels of all time, and I haven't gotten into any Alan Moore. I'm hoping to read this one as well as Watchmen in the future, because those are probably two of his most acclaimed graphic novels of all time. And I'm very curious to see what I will think of this book. I just don't know a ton going into it, other than that's where the Anonymous mask comes from, that there's kind of a post-apocalyptic or authoritarian dystopian government angle to it. Also, all of the ties to Remember, the 5th of November. And to be honest, I wish that I had gotten this a little bit earlier so that I could do a review in November. So I don't know if I'll wait until November to do a review of this, because it seems like an awfully long time to wait for a book like this. This one will probably come a lot quicker than the others, just because it's a graphic novel and it's way shorter. And I will say, just from looking at it, I do love this old art style of graphic novels. I love the stark contrast between the dark and the light colors. I like all of the thick lines that are used in the character designs. I'm also excited to read this book because I'm wanting to expand my channel into reading comic books as well. So this, I feel like, will be a good place to start in terms of moving my channel in that territory as well. I'm very curious to see what my thoughts will be on this book, and you can definitely expect to see a review for this book coming in the future. But that is all the books that I have for my end of the year book haul. I hope this gets you guys excited about what the next year will bring in terms of the books that I'll be reading. And again, comment down below on any books that you would recommend to me that you would like me to read, as well as which book in my book haul has you the most excited for what I'll be reading. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.